IT businesses in Sacramento County.
From somewhere deep in the cloud and the corners of the earth, this is the Killing It Podcast, with a focus on helping you make sense and dollars of all things IT. With your hosts, Dave Sobel, Ryan Morris, and Carl Polachuk.
Welcome, everybody, and we have something very special for you today. Important information. At 212 degrees Fahrenheit, water becomes steam. At 211, it's hot. At 212, you can move a locomotive or make electricity. We are happy to bring you episode 212 of the Killing It podcast.
Carl, if we're now steam, is that just a bunch of hot air? Like
We are a lot of hot air. We're beyond hot air.
We are the droplets within the hot air.
it's kind of a thing. Now I want to kick us off with something a little bit fun. Gents, what's your current pet peeve?
For me, I gotta say, this is just very personal, but ads on streaming media that I've already paid for. Netflix, Disney. I was like, wait a minute, I paid for this. Why do I have to have ads? I don't get it.
That's a good one. And there are ad free tiers. That's a good one.
I know the fact that ad free is no longer ad free.
Mine is broad, and I have stickers on my laptops now to represent it. Is data is greater than opinions. Mine continues to be the same pet peeve I've had for 20 years of my career. Is that opinions are always trumped by data. If you come to me with data, that is better than opinions. But otherwise, it's opinion.
This just reflects your addiction to reality.
It's true. It's my favorite drug. It is my favorite drug.
Dave is stubborn like that. He's stubborn like that. So
I made an entire job in podcast out of reporting on data. So yes, I am completely on board with that. But that is mine. Data stronger than opinions.
See, now I'll meet you guys sort of halfway in between there. Mine is it doesn't have nearly as much substance in the world, but it is something that there's data to back up. My current pet peeve is branding for technology companies that's essentially just a word misspelled. Right. Like, and you can probably think of 77 of them right off. This is a word and it's a general word, and I can't trademark that or copyright that word because it's in the public domain. But if I misspell it, aren't I clever and therefore marketing genius? I instantly think less of companies that their brand is just a misspelling.
It's usually removing a vowel at the end to slide the R closer to something else, right? Like
Did they run out of fake words like Intel and Pentium? Like what the hell?
I know. We no longer have if you watch all the commercials for the drugs that are being sold to us on television, they have officially run out of syllables that they can mush together and make a brand name. Now they're just doing stuff where it's like and this one I can't. When you put a G and a L and a Y right in the middle of a word, and it's preceded by a B and followed by another consonant, that's not a word.
Well,
Galarthal for all your constipation needs.
Unless you're European, and then it's a proper name. So
exactly.
I will say, final note on this. As a graduate of the University of Michigan, it really irritates me that the Ohio State, has copyrighted or trademarked the word "the" is a trademark of the Ohio State University. So anyway, today's episode is brought to you by the Small Biz Thoughts technology community. The best deal in online communities for IT owners is Small Biz Thoughts technology community. Memberships start at just $799 a year, and that includes a 5-week course at IT Service Provider University. Grab all the details at www.smallbizthoughts.org.
Excellent. All right, let's move into topic number one. I'll introduce this one. So nobody is surprised by the fact that cybersecurity is still an number one priority for all of our customers as well as for us in the service provider world, the one adult voice in the room that has consistently been there to establish standards, to provide alerts, to notify us of things that need to be taken seriously has been CISA at the federal government level. We have all read the headlines. We know that there are changes, cuts, misunderstandings, perhaps, of what the original mission was. That is redirecting the organization into new activities. I said to you guys at the beginning right here, the one adult voice in the room. In fact, my experience has been, especially over the last 5 months, it's the one thing all cybersecurity professionals from every spot on the spectrum, politically, socially, culturally, financially, the one thing everybody agrees on: CISA is important. It's being altered. What do you guys see that is happening, and how do you think that's going to impact the broader world of technology in terms of degraded cybersecurity capabilities?
So will admit I have some biases here too, right? So as the one who lives just outside D.C. in Northern Virginia and actually has friends affected by the turmoil internally, I have to say I have some biases here, right? From the perspective of it hits me in personal ways too. But let's, now that I've acknowledged that, let's also sort of say like look, right, I'm with you. I think generally we can look at, since its formation, CISA has generally invested in a lot of the things that are important to us as a country. And if we believe the threat of cyber actors is as important, and we've got portions of our military department, this is the portion for civilians. And what I'm actually thinking, for me, the most important bit that I think is worth talking about here is I'm watching very closely the vendors that are saying something, which is mostly nobody. There's a lot of crickets, right? And I look and go, vendors, particularly all these cybersecurity vendors, who say how important it is, that cybersecurity is the biggest opportunity right now, and all MSPs and IT services companies should be doing cybersecurity, are shockingly quiet at the dismantling of the civilian portion of cybersecurity, readiness. And so I look and go, like, if it's really as important as you vendors say it is, and you are also incredibly quiet here, I think that's incredibly telling. And for me, what I'm starting to saying is when I'm looking at us as a community, as IT service providers, MSPs, the people, guys like us advising them, like, I'm looking for, what do customers need? I think there is some real need here, but if the vendors are not willing to step up and do something about it when it really matters, well, does it really matter?
Well, and coming off of that, what's the alternative? Because there cannot be nothing. There cannot, this void has to be filled. And it will be filled by private organizations, by other governments, and unfortunately, I don't know how small IT service providers get a hold of data that's valid, that is safe, where you can say, I'm gonna get these alerts, and I'm gonna put them in some automated way into my system, and I'm gonna rely on it, and I'm gonna believe that it's going to be legit, and my clients can rely on me. Because in a lot of ways, if you pick a vendor and they make a mistake, or they're like, oh, wait a minute, yeah, that vendor is no longer allowed to do business in the United States, right? Kaspersky comes to mind, right? Like, I picked the wrong vendor. Now what do I do? So there can't be a void. There has to be something. And we have to figure out, how do we get the government to, put a little funding into this and into the right thing. And you can't wave your hand and say, just don't do anything. That is not an option.
Yeah, doing nothing is not an option. Now, I recently went to the RSA conference in San Francisco. By the way, reports of San Francisco's demise might be a little bit exaggerated. The town definitely has some fraying around the edges, but it was good to see 45,000 people come back in for a very substantial conference and put everybody on the same conversation. There were nearly 700 exhibitors there. I came away, A, with a headache, and B, with an overwhelming sense of, there's a tool for that, right? There is a way to solve all of these problems. But the one thing that I also came away with was, if there is not a central version of the truth in a cyber environment, then all the tools in the world make it worse. Right? Like you are going to be chasing boogeymen and you are going to be ignoring truly important things if there is not one centrally agreed upon version of the truth. I don't think that that is the role of a single vendor. I don't think that you can have a person selling a piece of technology saying, mine is the one true answer to rule them all, and you should buy this software instead of that software. That will never be credible. There has to be that unifying voice. And I will also report from the floors of the convention, everybody in private was freaked out about what was going on. Every serious cybersecurity professional of every persuasion was freaked out about what was going on and how we are or are not continuing the centralization of this, the frameworks, the new versions of approaches, the way we can apply technology with method to make a difference in cybersecurity. Every one of them agreed. No matter what I'm doing in my little pocket of the universe, if there's not a central version of the truth, we're all screwed. But to your point, Dave, I didn't hear anybody say that out loud from the big stage. So maybe I missed that statement and somebody can correct us, but people need to start saying that very
They
loudly.
need to start, and again, like I look at this and say, like, if you believe that cybersecurity is the ultimate, is not only important, right, and important for customers, but also the giant opportunity that everyone says it is, you gotta back that up with actual actions to defend it. And I say there's actually some interesting parallels with what's happening over on the journalism side, right? Where the element of journalists need to invest and protect and defend their space. Cybersecurity has thematically some of the same bits here, right? It's about the communication, it's about the coordination, it's about getting the information out. There is an element here of, if it is as important as we're all saying it is, well, you might have to actually stick your neck out and make that happen.
Do you think there's a vendor, maybe not one that we're currently aware of, but some company somewhere that is saying, "All right, it's time to step up. It's time to step in. We're building the database. We're building the infrastructure. We've got the data collection systems, and we've got the data reporting systems, and they're
Yeah,
about."
the Europeans. I'll say the Europeans, right? Because I just on the Business of Tech, I just reported on launching the EUVD, which is their own vulnerability database. They are working on replacing CVE because they have come to the conclusion it is unreliable out of the U.S. Now, there's a lot of uphill battle for that, but the Europeans are stepping up
So,
to
so
build their own version of it.
it's quite interesting. The Europeans are the default de facto leaders in the world on data privacy. And
Yep.
now, are you saying they will become the de facto leaders in the world on cybersecurity alerts and information from foreign attacks?
So they have the opportunity to become. Right now is what they've said just is we cannot rely on the United States. The United States is an unreliable partner and is no longer showing consistency and willing to invest. And so rather than do that and wait, we are simply going to solve our own needs, but we're also going to share those needs with those that want it. And that, by the way, is how you become a leader. Is that you make it easy to follow them. Well, I'm going to pivot us, and interestingly, in a way, it's kind of almost a related story to this. Is I want to bring up the taxes for IT consultants in the delivery of IT services. We're in the point now where both Maryland and Washington State have announced new taxes on IT services, cloud services. It oftentimes includes cybersecurity. We're going to have to laugh and go, not to say we told you so, because I believe we've been talking about this on this show for a little while. In our warm up and prep for this, we were actually talking about that these guys are not even the first states to do this. That there's a growing list of it. And interesting, when we look at what happened in Maryland, there was a lot of discussion. A whole lot of stuff was included, and then back and forth, and lobbyists got involved, and the only one left was IT services and all of its related pieces when the tax bill went out. Gents, I'm going to throw out to you. Hey, we're talking to a group of MSPs and IT services companies. Taxes directly on their services. What say you?
Well, I will say one of the members of the board at National Society of IT Service Providers is also on the board of the Chamber of Commerce of the state of Maryland. And they were heavily involved in this, but it was literally one of these things that at the last minute they said, no, 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 okay, you're going to kill this. You're going to kill the tax on all services. Fine, we'll just put it on IT. Boom, done. And it happened so fast. And the problem is, for the rest of all the other states, this is exactly what you can expect to happen when two things are in place. One, budget deficits. We need money from somebody somewhere who's got money that we're not currently taxing. Oh, okay, guess what? Those juicy folks at IT are a prime candidate. And number two, if we don't have a seat at the table, then there's nobody who can speak on our behalf when something happens. And I do not think this is the last time we're going to be talking about taxes on IT services.
No, and I think that what you're describing is, as I've understood it throughout my career, when things are new, they can swim around the edges. They can dance between the raindrops and not get caught by the regulations, and especially at a federal level where things are very inefficient. It's very easy for a new upstart industry to say, well, that's not us, and we're not included in that, and therefore your regulations don't apply. But as an industry matures, not every industry does, because some of them just cease to exist. They do not succeed their way into full maturity, but any industry that does succeed into maturity becomes such a target, becomes so large that eventually people will come, A, with the regulations to say, we need you to do your jobs better. And then B, with the taxes that say, ooh, you guys do 75% of all of the revenue that happens in this industry. Therefore, big buckets of money that we can capitalize on. But the third one, and I think this is ultimately where our industry is not yet prepared, and B, where all the big damage can be done, very much as you're describing, Dave. There will be regulations, there will be taxes, and then there will be backroom deals that happen in order to really shape the teeth of any of these organizational approaches. I don't think that we as IT service providers have a voice yet at the table that is loud enough, large enough to really alter these things in our favor. But boy, if we don't get one in the very near future, we're going to look around and say, oh, so there were some rules to the game. We just chose to think that we were different and we could innovate our way around it. I think that we will learn some old-fashioned lessons about how the dollars really get divided up. My call to action to everybody in the channel is, if there is somebody who's saying, I'll take that burden and I will stand up and I will fight that fight. A, join them. B, fund them. C, say stuff out loud. Because if you don't do those things, you will take the short end of the regulatory
Can
stick.
I highlight how much I like big buckets of money? Like, I just need to like highlight that, right? But again, I'm with you, but I'm going to call them out because I said this on the Business of Tech. I'm going to say it here as well. For this could not be more of a commercial for the National Society of IT Service Providers. Like, it just essentially is just that. Because if I look around, I stick my head up and go, like, all of the community organizations that are out there do all kinds of different stuff. What are the only ones that are actually leaning into lobbying efforts at any level? It's the National Society, right? And you can say, like, CompTIA in its former self backed off from that. GTIA is making some noises, but frankly, I don't believe they are capable of executing. I'm actually gonna say it. Like, I don't believe they're capable of executing on that because they're trying to be a neutral space for vendors and service providers to come together. There's a direct conflict of the vendor needs and the service provider needs when it comes to lawmaking that I do not believe they will be able to reconcile, as opposed to the National Society, which is in the title, who they're focused in on, right? So I'll just laugh and go, hey, who's the only one who is focused on that, has let it out as their mission statement. If you're looking for a place to get involved, that feels like the one place where you can do some work on
And a
this.
little follow up on the buckets of money, which is tempting. Like, I wanna love buckets of money, but I also feel like ixnay on the discussion, right? Like, don't talk about that out loud, because it is partly because we are so successful as an industry that IT service providers are being gobbled up by one another. There's the deal of the week, the deal of the month, and politicians are not blind to that. When they see an industry that is so juicy that private equity is coming in with billions of dollars and buying up everything they can find, they're naturally going to say, that looks like a place to get some taxes. So, how can we help them divert their eyes and figure out something to tax besides us? Because I'll tell you what's next is taxing your services, particularly for services that you resell that basically there's nothing you can do except pass it on to your clients, whether it is Office 365 or anything else. And a lot of that stuff that's been delivered digitally has not been taxed since day one in 1994 when the internet became public. It's just not been a thing we talk about.
And by the way, I do believe that taxes are coming for that, and at some level, zero is unsustainable. Like I look and say, like, if this is the true delivery of product, which is what we talk about, that there, in services as product, like there is a logical extension of that to say, like, there will be some tax revenue to that, in particular because it is a component of it. I want to look at it from the perspective of, like, is the are the amounts healthy? Are they sustainable? Are they something that can be managed? And sensitive to the fact that we need to make sure that they are put in the right place. There's a very different level of, say, taxing the delivery of services to a Fortune 5,000 company versus the delivery of services to a sub $2 million small business. We have progressive tax systems for a reason, right? Because you can actually balance it in such a way. So it's not necessarily a matter of saying, like, hey, we're trying to make this zero. It's can we talk about this in a way that's healthy for the entire ecosystem and solve the problem?
And where in the channel should the taxes come? At the top, at the bottom,
Right.
somewhere in the middle?
Yep, somebody has to, and fingers will get pointed there. But I will highlight a point you just made there, Dave. When the thing that we sell is a digital service, when product becomes transient, that is the end result of all of this digital delivery and subscription economy, and where the intellectual property is something that you do not own, you just rent. That is something that will absolutely lead into the direction of this outcome, right? We, as an industry, we've been saying things like there are no more products, you do not purchase and own anything, everything is an operating expense, and we will move in that model. That's a good idea, except what that does is it opens up a backdoor into, okay, maybe all things that are operating expense are now taxable. So we will see more of that.
Sadly, the crystal ball is not very clear. So, all right, topic number 3. Under what circumstances should we rely on generative AI? You knew there was going to be an AI conversation, and we're going to link into the show notes a great graphic and a description of a Boolean exercise that you can easily go through, looking at, very simple questions. First of all, does it matter if the output is true? Yes or no? Well, if it doesn't matter, by all means, you're good to go. Rely on generative AI. If it does matter, then you need to ask, do you have the expertise to verify that the output is correct? If you don't, then it's a red light. Do not proceed. If you do have the expertise, then okay, you might proceed. And the third question is, are you willing to take full responsibility for inaccuracies? If the answer is no, do not proceed with generative AI. If it's yes, proceed with caution. Note that there's never a yes, always go option. There's the best you can hope for is the yellow light, which is proceed.
Well, hold on. I want to actually highlight the relevance of is it true, because what's interesting, true is a strong sort of statement. I always sort of say, like, right is the way that I think about it from the perspective of, because a lot of things that are opinions or that are like where absolute perfection is not the end goal. In particular, there's a lot of things that are sort of marketing efforts or communication efforts where there isn't necessarily true, there's communicating an idea, right? And that's where the element of, like, for me, there's a lot of stuff that perfection is unattainable. And I also think about this, from the perspective of, like, well, human, right? Like, if I'm putting this through a human, am I also ensuring absolute perfection? Unless it's going through like a fact checking process or something. There's a lot of times where you'll just write something which is designed to cause a discussion or spark an idea that fits into this. Is the output true? Well, it doesn't have to be, right? It's not solving for that. And I think oftentimes we're very limiting of our perspective of what has to be right, when it actually that isn't the goal. That the goal is conversation or communication or stimulating thought or something where from my perspective, it becomes safe to use because the goal isn't perfection. And oftentimes, remember, humans aren't perfect either. We need to confer against humans, right? Are we able to do this in a safe way? That said, the element of this that I think is really important is are you willing to take full responsibility for the output? Is the second portion of that,
Right.
which is still coupled with the does it have to be, true? If you're willing to take the risk, right, of the fact that it may have an opinion that is, say, stronger or positioned differently than if you're willing to accept that portion of the risk, it does move it into that green safe to use. But I think this framework is super useful.
Well, and I think again, the middle portion of this test is the one that continues to be true, but is relevant and is going to become much more significant in the future. Do you, the user, the craftsman who is wielding the tool, have the expertise to verify whether or not it is real, the output of AI, the Gen AI is real, and to massage it, to improve it, to validate its existence, right? If you, the user, do not know the topic about which you are asking Gen AI to speak, then maybe it's giving you real answers. Maybe it's giving you a load of confident bullshit, and you don't know the difference. But that is, I believe, the ultimate deciding factor. Because, like you say, Dave, there's a lot of debate. Does it matter if it's true? I was working on words in my brain while you were talking there. Does it matter if it's real? Does it matter if it is valuable? Does it matter if it is of impact and substance in the world? If the answer to all of those things is no, cool. Go be creative. Gen AI some images that are really cute and clever. Knock yourself out, right? But beyond that debate, you, the user, do you possess the depth, the experience, the substance to determine whether or not what you are putting out is responsible and relevant and generally improving the discourse? If the answer to that is no, stop it. Right, like you are using it's. I always use this example, right? I'm not a handy person when it comes to physical tools and building stuff in this world, but I really, really enjoy watching television programs about people who are good at those things, right? But I always say to people, you could give me all the best tools in the world. You could build me a shed and a workshop and give me all of that stuff that would make the very best craftsman. I'd still be more willing or more likely to slice off my own thumb than I would be to deliver you an heirloom quality piece of furniture. It's not the tools that matter. It is the craftsman, the human in the loop, that determines whether or not the output is fit for purpose or consumption. And if that's not true, damn it, stop it. We've got way too many non-experts out there using tools to supposedly answer questions that are really just dragging down the
Yeah,
discourse.
so let me just actually draw that out a tiny bit more, then we'll get off the tools. But I saw a great commentary on YouTube about, chop saws, miter saws, right? And somebody had made the comment like you can't get accurate cuts on miter saws, and the first comment was you can't get accurate cuts for the miter saw, right? Don't blame your tools, right? The thing every craftsman knows is if you're blaming the tools, your skills are not quite up to spec, right? So, and what's interesting is a lot of the words that float in my head are not the words that either of you have used with this. Like I might replace truth with accuracy, right? And I might say, well, maybe we need some subroutines on this simple Boolean diagram that's okay. Is it useful? Does it communicate? Ultimately, the goal of communication is to transfer information and opinion. Those are two very different things, right? So does it help me feed my brain what I need to take things internally, to make decisions, to make good choices, blah, 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 to do my job better, to deliver better services to my client? Is it useful? Anyway, I do think that this is a place to start. It is a great place to start. I encourage everybody to go take a look at that and then argue with somebody about it.
Well, and also let me just kind of go back and add on top of what you just said there, Carl. Um, Absolutely zero of us in this conversation are suggesting that Gen AI is not a useful tool. And we are not here to be scolded and tell you stop using those tools. We are personally using these tools to great effect and for a responsible purposes, we hope and we believe, but also to expand reach and coverage and capacity and to do things bigger, better than we could do with manual labor. That is the purpose of technology and tools and has been since the invention of the basic lever or inclined plane as a piece of human invented technology, right? Please use these tools. Please actually become an expert. Also, as a service provider, please use the service capabilities you have to prepare and support your customers in their ability to use these tools. We're not here to tell you not to use Gen AI. We're here to tell you stop it with the irresponsible use. And by the way, if you can be the guy who charges to validate whether or not your customers are the correct ones to be using that and then enable them to use it responsibly, you should charge a lot of money for that.
Remember, the pursuit of perfection is what often makes you inability to ship. and I think about that framework a lot when I talk about generative AI. The fact that I'm not looking to achieve perfection, but that comes down to in places where I need perfection, this may not be the right tool.
Exactly. And that brings us to a close. I'm not sure we reached any perfection, but we did reach 212 degrees and 212 episodes. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Killing It podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the Killing It podcast. Please share with your friends and tell everyone to subscribe on iTunes and all the podcast places. Join us next week and help us keep killing it in the technology business.